Welcome back to episode 2 of season 2 of the Almost Made It podcast, proudly brought to you by Cultural Club. Another massive show in the works at the moment. We've got a big guest. I'm going to sound like Bruce Buffer introducing this guy, but anyway. We've got professional super lightweight boxer with a professional record of 4 wins, 2 wins by knockout and 0 losses, fighting out of Team Alice Gym, Tommy the Gun Fitzgerald. How are you, my friend?
Boys, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
What's going on?
Oh, just cruising along. Nice, easy Thursday morning this morning. So it's been good.
Fight coming up, I hear?
Correct. I'm exactly 9 days out today. So next Saturday I'll be doing my thing.
Very good, man. And we were just speaking off air about your cutting weight and everything else. So I heard we're gonna have a few toilet breaks today.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the go, man? How do you prepare for that?
So I'm fighting, the super lightweight limit, 63.5 kilos. And I think as of last night, I'm about around 67 and a half, depending on like fluctuations and whatnot. So I do what's called a water load. So at the start of next week, I'll be drinking 10 litres and then I halve it every day until weigh-in day, when I drink nothing until I get off the scales. So I'll tend to flush out between 2 and 3 kilos on the week. Yeah. So lots of water today.
I think I drink a lot and it's probably like 2-3 litres.
Exactly.
This guy's drinking 10. Anyway, let's start from the start, all right? So where did it all begin? What was your childhood like? Were you always destined to be a boxer? Let us know. Where did it start?
Nah, definitely not early on. I grew up in Bendigo, which is like 2 hours that way. And I grew up in a stock standard like Aussie rules footy family, very, very common in Bendigo. Didn't start boxing until I was like, I think 13. So like early high school. Was no profound reason why I went to the gym or anything like that. I just sort of like went along with friends. My old man probably encouraged it. I was a bit trouble prone as a young lad. So I definitely boxing helped with that. It was also to get fit for footy at the time. So I went along with friends, loved it, and ended up giving away footy for boxing shortly after, and still doing it this far down the track.
Is 13-year-old, like, to get into boxing at that age, is that considered like old or young these days?
I would definitely say here it's considered young.
Okay.
And people, that's usually the response I get. People go, when did you start boxing? I go, 13. I go, far out. Like I wish I started that age. But definitely if you go over to the States, you've got like these child prodigies that started boxing at 6 months old or something ridiculous. Like, but no, here definitely I would say that I was considered young. They're definitely younger, but yeah, compared to the vast majority of people that box now, pretty young.
Did you ever want to pursue footy like at the beginning, or you just played more for fun? Did you sort of have that time where
I was a pretty ambitious kid. I definitely wanted to play like Aussie rules at some point, but realistically, I was shit out of footy. I was terrible,
that's fair enough. You chose what you're good at.
I gave it a red hot crack, and to be honest, I wasn't naturally very good at boxing either. But it's been obviously a long route to get from there to here, and So to answer your question, I definitely did for a little bit. I probably was pretty confident I wanted to pursue boxing seriously after a couple of years in the case. So I was probably maybe 5-6 fights down. I sort of thought, I'm spreading myself too thin across footy and boxing. I got to pick one and give it a red hot crack.
Now we are. That's it. What's the process like turning pro? Right. Is there some sort of like guideline that everyone follows? It's very different boxer to boxer.
Very, very different from person to person. So the way it came about for me is I was in the amateurs for a long time. So I competed in the amateurs for over 10 years. I had 27 amateur fights.
Won all of them?
Definitely didn't win all of them. Ami boxing is like an apprenticeship. You're supposed to fight hard fights, win a lot, lose a lot. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, 100%. Pro boxing is where winning is everything. So, losing can be very detrimental to someone's career. And then obviously all my fights were out of Bendigo. I moved to Melbourne for uni. chopped around at a few different boxing gyms. Ended up at Team Alice, where I am now. Started working there as a boxing coach shortly thereafter. Spoke to Jakey, who's Jake Ellis, who owns the gym. And he said, "Look, we'd love to put you on as a coach. We'd also love to, get you contracted and put you on as a professional, turn you pro." At this point, I hadn't had an amateur fight for a couple of years because of COVID and other things. So it was definitely out of left field for me. Something I didn't expect to happen as quickly as it did. I thought I was going to have a few more amateur fights before I did turn pro. But no, I'm definitely happy with how it turned out. It's been going good so far.
Awesome. What does being pro actually mean? Like for people that don't know, what is the actual difference between amateur and professional in a boxing sense?
Oh, by definition, you're getting paid. So essentially, amateur boxing, yeah, some of them might get paid by sponsors and what have you, but actually being a prize fighter and getting paid to fight is what I guess more or less qualifies you as a professional. And then there's logistical things like you don't fight with a headgear, you fight with little 8-ounce gloves. Knockouts are much more common. It's much more flashy and all that sort of stuff. But I guess the main point of difference is you're fighting for money now.
Okay. Do you also, with these pro fights, do you have a manager or someone that organises these fights or promoters? Is it that type of thing? Yeah.
So I'm very, very lucky. I have a good team around me. I've got obviously my two coaches that I work with. I've also got a matchmaker who organises and sets up my opponents and all that sort of stuff. And I have a promoter as well who puts me on his shows or, communicates with other promoters to put me on their shows and things like that.
What's the process like when picking a fighter, for you? What's the thinking behind it?
Criteria.
Yeah, what's the criteria?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I have very, very little involvement in it because obviously because I'm the one fighting, it's for the best that I don't have an involvement because it's me doing it so I can make ego-based decisions. I might pick someone who's been calling me out because I want to fight him. I might pick a fight that's not right at the right time because, my matchmaker knows the ins and outs of the game much more than I do. I just train and punch on.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but that you can then just train and then you got them dealing with everything. Yeah. Which is, I think it's a great concept, you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'd rather it like that.
100%.
We talk a lot about on our podcast, especially with professional sports people, more footballers, but that feeling of walking into a change room, for the first time in a new club or something like that, it's a real sink or swim moment. And I guess I could sort of compare that to walking into the ring for the first time. All right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you, what's the emotions? How do you describe that?
Well, it's been a long time since I walked into the ring for the first time. But I still remember it quite well. And it although it gets easier every time, the nerves are always still definitely there. There's definitely, the nerves are a huge factor. Less so concerned about getting hurt and what have you, more so about I guess, and you guys would definitely be able to relate. I put a lot of pressure on myself to win. I hate losing, hate it with a passion.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that, actually.
So I suppose, as the pressure to win is definitely there every time I step in the ring.
How important is that in boxing? Obviously, man, you don't want to get hurt, but that will to win, how important is that?
Oh, it's huge for me personally because I want to win and I want to take this as far as I can. But from a business standpoint as well, it's super important for a fighter's career to keep them winning and keep them in the winners column. So
I'm always well, actually we both are. We're always fascinated to find out where that comes from in someone. For us in football, it was sort of just ingrained in us from a really, really young age. We just always hated losing more than we probably like winning.
Yeah.
But what was it for? Yeah, it becomes an obsession. Where did it come from with you? Was it just?
Yeah, I definitely think it's inherent.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always, even before boxing, just hated losing. It's for lack of a better word, I'm definitely a sore loser.
Yeah.
I try and be obviously a gracious loser, and that's how I was brought up and whatnot, and to be, I guess, humble in victory and defeat and all that sort of stuff. But I definitely don't like it.
It's a good trait to have.
Definitely.
Like you said, it's a fine line. You want to be gracious and not go over the top, but I think it allows you to improve. And then when you do lose, it puts more fire in your belly, you know what I mean? So because you don't want to have that feeling again.
Absolutely. So, and you see people that are, I guess, okay with losing, and they tend to get very complacent and not to be rude, but it tends to limit them in whatever they're whatever they're pursuing. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, going on to that point, like these days with kids not being able to win and lose and stuff. And it's like,
they're not keeping score stuff.
And it's like, for me, like you're setting them up for failure because like it's like that concept in sport, you can then translate into your life. It's what you can take that with you for the rest of your life. So for me, it just doesn't make sense that they're sort of sugarcoating it for these kids. Like, and when we have these conversations, you see like people that are growing up like us, how we're driven and our mentalities, and I think it's a good thing.
Oh, huge! It's almost the same as going to a job interview and getting a job because you turned up to the job interview.
Exactly.
Like you've got to perform and be the best applicant.
Exactly
it's the same. It's the same with sport and competition. You've got to compete, make a good account of yourself, and be better than the other guy. And that's how you win or achieve what you're after.
And that's fun. Well,
exactly.
You know how people are just go play for fun. But for me, fun is competing, fun is winning.
Yeah. Huge.
You know what I mean? And like sometimes I just can't understand people that don't have that concept. But
yeah. And that's something I've definitely had to realize as a coach as well, is I've got to sort of sometimes pull myself up and remind myself, hey, some of these guys are just like, they're just here to burn a few calories and have a bit of a chit chat and, get a sweat up. They're not here to be a world champion. So I've got to relax on it when I'm coaching Gen Pop. Obviously when I'm coaching fighters, I'm drilling them, but when I'm coaching Gen Pop and just like your standard gym goer, I've got to relax into it a little bit.
I've got to say, you're actually a great coach. Whenever you've coached me, absolutely.
You got to
He's number one.
I was meant to ask where you've been. I haven't seen you in a minute.
I know, man. I have to come down again.
Come down now.
Over summer,
come through for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You have to. He'll belt you, but
I'm just no doubt about that.
No, but in all honesty, like I got that from you, Tommy, when you coached me. Like I could see that you had, muck around with everyone, whatever, but you also had the other side where like for like 2-3 minutes, like when it was just me and you, whatever, in the ring, when no one else would rock up on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You had that side to you and I loved it. Like, we're
absolutely.
in it.
And I like, and even though you might not have goals to have a fight or whatever else, I'm still gonna coach you in a way that would translate to being effective in the boxing ring. So operating under the assumption that we are training for a fight, even if we're not, you know what I mean? Like it's because a lot of people just love to learn the skill. Like it's why they're not turning up to a gym and walking on a treadmill for half an hour. It's much more engaging that way, or at least for me it is.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say that, like obviously boxing your whole life, what's the biggest takeaway you've had? What's it taught you the most?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind is just to persist, because it's a hard environment, it's a cutthroat environment, and you can do all the right things and get beat anyways. And the main thing I guess to take away from that is to still be in the gym, on the Monday morning, get back into it and not fall off the wagon, because you see tons of guys that do well for however long and then they might take a loss, they might get a nasty decision, or they might not be performing in the gym or whatever else, and they just fall off the wagon. And the only reason they don't succeed is because they didn't keep turning up. So just got to turn up and get it done regardless. And I feel like that translates to a whole lot of things.
I love that, man. So good.
Also, in touching on that, how you said also during COVID, I'm assuming that would have been a tough time for boxing in terms of your training, but there's not many events going on. So, So was there a point in your career that you you were really like, not doubting, but you're like, geez, there's not many opportunities are coming up, COVID's happened, I'm training my ass off, is things gonna turn the right way for me? Did you have any of those moments?
Yeah, 100%. And I was also more or less between gyms, because COVID sort of hit a few years after I'd moved to Melbourne. So I'd left my childhood gym that I trained at all my life. I'd left my foundational coach, like the guy that I started and learned to box from. So I didn't really have a coach, more or less. I was sort of on my own. So yeah, my training was literally limited to shadow boxing in my backyard of my dodgy rental. So, and even to be honest, the last year I did box in Bendigo was sort of, I had a bit of a funny relationship with boxing. Like I was not burnt out, but I don't know, it was a tricky year. I was also working for the coach that I trained under all my life, and that was probably not a great move because we were both very similar in terms of our personalities, so we clashed quite a bit. And I don't know, I got to a point where instead of loving coming to the gym, I guess I more or less fell out of love with boxing for a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was definitely a factor for a while.
And I think that's important, like you say that, and when you sort of have those moments, it's like the discipline, because you got the passion for it and too, but I think the discipline is what gets you through those times because there's times like that where you're probably like, you don't feel like boxing. So the passion's like, you're there, but it's not there. It's what gets you up in the morning. I've got to train. I've got to go. And then look, like obviously you're here now, but I think those little moments that in the bigger picture is what got you to this moment. You know 100%. What I mean? So yeah, no, it's very interesting.
Would you say you had like some sort of role model or idol you looked up to through boxing?
There's a ton of them. There's obviously the guys that I'm seeing on the TV and, I'm watching the fights and these guys are fighting for world titles and all that sort of stuff. So those sort of guys. It was also, I guess, the older guys in the gym. So the guys that had maybe a few amateur fights when I hadn't. Mm-hmm. So the guys that were maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of me. My coach, I looked up to my coach growing up quite a bit. My old man as well, who actually doesn't box, but he was definitely a huge role model for me coming up, and he's been very, very supportive of my career since the get-go. So yeah, a whole number of people on both a professional and a personal level.
Yeah, that's cool. But obviously, so you've mentioned, there's a few fighters that you might look up to, I guess. Would you say you're like similar to anyone? Do you sort of, not obviously, you don't model the way you box around someone, but your style, would you say you're similar to someone?
I couldn't narrow it down to any one fighter in particular.
That's how good you are.
I was going to say Manny Pacquiao.
Nah, not quite. Definitely not. I like to, I guess, and definitely not saying that I'm anywhere near on the level of these guys yet. Aspiring to be for sure, but got a long way to go. Got a lot of work to do. But I definitely like to take bits and pieces from guys that you see, because if I try and emulate any one fighter, I'm gonna fall short.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's definitely bits and pieces, like you take like the aggression and the strength and the punching power from like a lot of the Mexican fighters that you see. You take the finesse and the ring IQ and the brains from like your Floyd Mayweathers of the world and stuff like that. But you'll never see me trying to box like a Mike Tyson or a heavyweight boxer, because it's just not specific to me.
Yeah,
being 63.5 kilo.
Funny enough, actually, I've probably never told you this, but somewhere down the line, I'm related to Paulie Malignaggi.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Really?
He's actually a good friend of the
he is actually
the brand of the show.
Really?
We've sent him a few stuff. We've been in contact.
There you go.
We chat to him.
That's a big name.
Yeah, if you want any
We've
sparring reels. Yeah, with it.
Yeah.
He's got his own podcast now.
Paulie?
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, but, there you go.
Yeah, so if you ever want to have a spar, let me know.
Yeah, well,
my people talking.
Give me a ring. Paulie was a sparring partner for Conor McGregor in the lead up to the Mayweather fight, wasn't he?
Massive.
I remember they controversially didn't get along, but he was giving him rounds.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
So there you go.
Actually, going on to this sort of thing, I want to ask you. It's a very interesting question. What are your thoughts on all these YouTubers taking to the ring?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, what does an actual boxer think of this?
I get asked this a bit, and it's my opinion of it's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially since turning pro and also working at Team Alice as well, because we have in the past specialised in celebrity cards, celebrity shows, not to the level of your Jake Pauls and your Logan Pauls and whatnot, but we'll bring in like AFL players and have them fight each other. We've brought in guys from like Love Island, Married at First Sight, and all those sort of reality shows and had them fight each other and done really well with it. I guess before turning professional, I thought, geez, these guys, like, you know, it's not fair. I've worked all my life for this, and these guys are just waltzing into the sport for a couple of months and they're making more than I've made in my entire career combined in one fight. And it's not even a good fight. But so I've always, from like the boxing purist in me, has always been a bit iffy on it. But the more and more I get into the professional boxing mindset, and the longer I've been a professional, I've realized that it's a business first and foremost, and probably more so than a sport. So if it makes dollars, it makes sense, doesn't it? So, you know, these guys are big names, and I also like it because it brings a lot of entry-level boxing fans or guys that have initially not followed boxing, and it's a stepping stone for them to be interested in the sport. So I have guys that, you know, 6 months ago might have been talking to me about Logan Paul this and Jake Paul that, and now they're following Canelo and they're following Terence Crawford and they're following boxing. So, you know, I think that can only be a positive thing for the sport.
Good answer.
Yeah, very good answer. It makes sense because maybe that generate, or like those people that are on the fence, it drags them in and then they become boxing fans.
Yeah.
So it does make, it's a good way to
which
look
is great for me.
Because I know me, even I remember, like, we're not boxing purists or anything, but at the start I was like, man, look at these, you know, dickheads.
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
As in, exactly, people like yourself, you dedicate your whole life to it. It's sort of like disrespectful almost in a way at the craft. It's like, man, these guys have learnt this craft and they're trying to fight and make a living, and then these guys just rock up, throw a few punches and make millions. But
if you could, you would though,
exactly.
wouldn't you? Like,
and then
there's a lot of money on the table.
Then you look at it from a different perspective and it's like it makes more sense.
Absolutely. And a lot of these guys are, they're getting better. They're definitely not world class or of a high quality like your Jake Pauls and your Logan Pauls, but they are getting better, and they're getting more invested in the actual boxing. So you see them putting up and coming high level boxers on their undercards. I think Jake Paul has been promoting a lot of the like, I think it was Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, like a high level female fight. So they're invested in the boxing and they're giving back to the sport as well, because I think they're definitely developing an appreciation for it as well.
I'm under the impression that every like sports person, right, has, I guess, a defining moment in their career. I know you're still very young, but was there something for you that you thought, fuck, like, is this for me? And then you push through that and you rediscover like, yeah, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
In terms of like a potential roadblock?
Yeah, like for me, for example, I, you know, wanted to be a professional footballer my whole life, played in Europe, did it all, and then it was one game against Nice in France. I didn't touch the ball for 90 minutes. I ran around like a dickhead. And after that game, I seriously considered.
You question everything.
Literally, I was like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't for me. Like, I'm nowhere near this.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, you keep going. Like you say, you keep showing up and you get over that. Was there something like that for you?
Oh, there's been multiple, for sure. The two that stick out for me were like, in the amateurs, my coach in the amateurs was very, very old school. He believed in chucking you in the deep end. So I fought and was lucky enough to fight a lot of very, very high quality opponents. So I fought like an Olympic bronze medalist, a Commonwealth Games gold medalist, Aussie champions, Pan Pacific champions, all these sort of guys. So I lost often because of the quality that I was in with. So I think there might have been, I think there was one time in the amateurs where I lost 3 on the trot. So I lost 3 in a row, which is like 6 straight months of losing, which was terrible. And like we said before, absolutely hated it. It was, especially as a kid.
Yeah.
But I think those sort of moments are definitely defining. And in hindsight, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Definitely.
The other one that sticks out is probably my pro debut. So I won my pro debut. I was very lucky to win, but I, in hindsight, think that my performance was very, very unimpressive. I got matched up with a guy that was tough, but I should have made quite easy work of. And instead I made it a very, very tough night. He got very, very scrappy. I made it a very, very messy fight. And then I got back and watched it back and I won, that's fantastic. But, you know, if I'm struggling to get it over guys like this, how am I going to beat the top level guys? But between then and now, I definitely think I've improved in leaps and bounds. I've been improving every fight and getting more and more comfortable whilst in the ring.
Mm.
So I think that would definitely be a defining moment in recent memory, for sure.
Cool. There you go.
Do you, speaking of like watching the fights back over, because I think that's an interesting point you make there. You can review a fight and then criticize yourself in a positive way to then get better. Do you watch a lot of your fights back and sort of analyze it? And
I feel like studying film and that sort of stuff is huge.
Really,
and I'm sure you guys get a lot of that in soccer, like or football, soccer.
Whatever you want to call it.
Actually, one of my mates, he was playing for the Central Coast Mariners, and I spoke to him when he just got picked up, and I was like, well, like, what's a day like for you? And he's like, oh, we get up in the morning, we train, and then we do like a good 3 hours of technical analysis and match review and stuff like that. So it's basically like you're sitting in a classroom. So, and I thought that definitely resonated with me, and I'm the same way. So I'm studying myself all the time, opponents that I get matched up with as well. Like I'm a full nerd with it. Like I've literally got a notebook with pages and pages and pages of notes on both my performance and my opponents, their past fights as well.
I was literally just about to ask that as well. Like, when you find out who you're fighting next, are you just like full nerd, or do you just rock up and I'm like, nah, this is my fight, I'm fighting my way?
Oh, a bit of both. Like I definitely try and still fight my way, but I've got to know what I'm up against, and I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice if I'm not studying up on who I'm getting in with, and I'm also probably overlooking them if I'm not doing my research.
You don't want to leave any stone unturned.
Exactly
right.
right.
You want all the arsenal that you can have to beat the person.
Yeah.
Do you know going into camp who the opponent's going to be, or you start camp and then sort of they organise it?
Sometimes you get matched up before you start camp. So we do 8-week fight camps where I'm cutting weight, training hard, living clean, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes I get matched up before the camp starts, but most of the time it's usually 2-3 weeks into camp. So the start of camp's a general preparation, just getting ready to beat an opponent. Mm-hmm. And then once I get matched up, it obviously becomes specific, and I'm training to beat this opponent and beat this style of boxing and how these guys fight and operate.
So going into camp, what would your diet look like? Is it a high protein, high carb, low fat? Like, what do you sort of adopt in terms of to maximise your performance in that 8 weeks?
Whilst I'm in camp?
Yeah. Is it like, you're really reducing your calories a lot, or how's it work?
Yeah, boxing's tricky because obviously my training load goes up, so I should be fueling myself more, and unfortunately, because I'm in a weight governed sport, I can't do that. So as my training goes up, the amount of fuel I'm eating goes down. So I've got to just make sure that like the quality of my nutrition is high. So I hit my protein targets because I eat in a very steep deficit because I've got to cut weight aggressively. So I've got to make sure that I'm hitting enough protein to make sure that I don't waste away and lose muscle whilst I'm in camp. Carbs I've got to be careful with. I usually cycle them around my training session. So I'll eat pre-workout and post-workout carbs, but not so much during the day. And I also got to try and get a decent amount of healthy fats in as well, because when I'm eating so little, your hormones can start to imbalance and stuff. So try and get like healthy sources of fats in amongst that as well where possible. But it's hard to sandwich all that in with the amount of calories I've got to play with, but I'd try my best.
So interesting, like,
because they got to do both.
Exactly.
That's why it's such a like catch-22, man.
Yeah. And I think also like it's hard for people to understand as well. Like we turn on the TV and we just watch a fight, but you know, for 8 weeks you're absolutely in the shit, man. Like,
that's the real fight. I'm telling you, the hardest part. Like I don't mind getting punched in the head. It's not going home and being able to eat what I want to eat. That's what does it for me.
Because you know when you weigh in and you make weight, and then you obviously I've seen like boxing pros, like they give them food straight away, they get off the scales. Is that then you have to hit a certain weight before you enter the ring, or it's okay once you've hit that weight you can eat as much as you want?
I can pretty much eat as much as I want,
but obviously you got to be careful too, because you don't want to overeat,
don't want to spill over,
and then be lethargic and
worse than fighting or sparring with a bunch of food in your guts is the worst.
It's such a like fine line.
Yeah.
Because realistically, you make that weight, you're like, oh man, give me a pizza.
Yeah.
I want to eat, you know what I mean? Let's go 4 carb up.
Yeah,
But you don't want to go over the top. So it's one of those things. It's fascinating.
You've got to, obviously we touched on it before, you've got a fight coming up. Take us through then, like a weigh-in to fight day. What's it look like?
So, like weigh-in week, obviously I explained to you guys the water load. So I'm drinking tons of water and I very abruptly cut that to nothing. I manipulate my sodium and my carbs and stuff. And essentially, without getting too sciencey with it, I'll do anywhere between 2.5 to 3.5 kilos of water weight lost in that week. If I wake up on weigh-in day, which will be Friday, and I'm still a little bit over, I'll have to sweat to get it off. So that'll either be in the form of a hot bath or a sauna. You'll look to hit the weight exactly. So I'm not trying to go under or anything like that because it's just going to place unnecessary strain on my body and my kidneys and whatnot. I hit the weight. I get straight off the scales. The first thing I want to do is eat. I can't because it'll affect my rehydration rate. So the first thing I need to do is water, electrolytes, things like that, and liquid carbohydrates. So I'll drink my carbs. I'll drink a ton of water, electrolytes, so sodium, potassium, all that sort of stuff. And then usually about an hour afterwards, I'll have my first meal, which will be lots of carbs, which is great. I love it.
What's your go-to?
So usually straight away or like, half an hour afterwards, I'll eat a massive thing of overnight oats just because I can have them with me and I'll have them in the fridge at the weigh-in venue. And then about an hour after that, we usually have a team dinner with the other pros that are fighting and my coaches at an Italian restaurant. It's Mozzarella Bar in Sedna. I don't know if you've been.
Yeah.
It's a decent feed there. Yeah. They do gnocchi porcini, the best.
Yeah.
So I'll eat that and I can eat, man. I'm telling you. Like,
especially after that.
Yeah, big time. So like my last fight, no, the fight prior to that actually, I weighed in at 62.6 kilo and I went to bed 2.5 hours later, 69.5. Oh, really? Yeah. So for dinner, I had my about 1.5 kilos of overnight oats and then I had the gnocchi and I had a chicken parma as well.
Do you notice a big difference? Obviously you would, but in the mirror, like do you feel out a lot?
Yeah, I look different. I actually explained this to someone yesterday. I showed him a photo of my weigh-in and I looked pretty gross, to be honest. Like gaunt, cheekbones, veiny, just like sick, not good. And then literally the next day, like you can see the glycogen in the muscle, like it's just much more puffy. Like not sloppy, but like full of carbs. Like
for sure.
I think it's also amazing that you're doing all this, but you're also staying mentally sharp. So I could probably do I've dieted. We cut weight as well sometimes. When we're overweight, you're covered into pre-season, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But then to stay as sharp as you do, to do what you do, I just find, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's mad respect, honestly.
Yeah.
It's definitely, like I said before, it's my least favorite part of the game. Like I love the fighting, all that sort of stuff. I also love eating, so it's tricky, but
But I think that is the key, because I know we'll just die simply. And man, I'm going to work and I'm just driving and I'm like, man, I can't eat. I'm seeing like 2 cars and then it's one. You know what I mean? Like things like that. It's like these guys getting in the ring, you're trying to avoid punches, you're staying sharp, you attack, train. It shows you the discipline and also like the passion and the love you have for what you do. Because I don't think that's when, if you don't have that, when you get to these sort of moments, you're just going to fade away. If you don't have that extra,
Definitely.
So yeah. No.
All right, so fight night now. What happens on the day? Do you have like rituals, superstitions?
Yeah, I do. I'm a bit weird like that. I'm like, have you ever seen like a Rafael Nadal's rituals going in the game? I'm sort of similar to that. So like you watch, even when I get in the ring, I do like 20 different things. I stomp my foot twice, sweep my feet. I step in the ring twice, bring my head under twice, touch my nose 3 times. Like it's ridiculous. It looks a bit weird and it is a bit weird, but it's I know they all sort of get developed over time. Like on fight day, I watch the same movie every single fight day. Other than that, it's a pretty cruisy day. It's a very relaxing day, and because I'm used to it by now, the nerves are there. But I actually enjoy fight day. Like I get a bit of a sleep in. I don't often get a sleep in. I get up, go for a little walk, do a little shadow box, but it's my job on that day to stay relaxed. You know what I mean? So I've got to be fresh. So I've got to cruise to the venue relatively early, see the doctor, all that sort of stuff. And then again, I'll just set up camp in the dressing room, see my family when they come in usually, but the rest of the time I'm spent just got the tunes on, maxing out, relaxing.
What's the movie?
What's the movie out of curiosity? Yeah.
Oh, the movie, it's called Gentleman Jim. It's a very old movie. It literally come out like 1932, like proper full black and white. Yeah. It's about the first, it's a true story. It's about the first heavyweight champion in gloved boxing. So around, I think it was 1917, they introduced the Marquess of Queensberry rules. So boxing turned from bare knuckle boxing to gloved boxing. And that was the first guy to win the belt. So the movie's about him. It's an old movie, but it's just become a bit of a ritual. I watched it before fights in the amateurs, and I've done the same for every pro fight, and it's gone all right for me so far, so I'm not changing it.
You know, actually, we're talking off air about this, how we're saying you're on the main card now. So you've obviously got undercards that you need to wait for. So in terms of when you're in the locker room, how do you sort of go with nutrition and fueling up when you don't really have a deadline, you know, when you're going to come out? Do you use certain tools that you employ or?
Yeah, so obviously we talked about this before. Yeah. It's hard to pace a fight night because if I'm fight 10, there could be 10 first-round or 9 first-round knockouts before me, or they could all go the distance. So I could be waiting anywhere between an hour to 4 hours to fight. Like it's a big stretch of time to sort of, I guess and time. Yeah, exactly. But I'm not really eating a whole lot in the hours leading up to the fight anyways. Like, it's a very old school coach philosophy is you want to fight hungry because all your survival instincts are on point and stuff like that. But it's actually got a bit of scientific backing as well because you don't want to be digesting food while you're in the ring. So by that point, I'm well and truly carb loaded from the night before and the morning of. But I don't usually eat 4 hours before the fight anyways. So
do you have like a coffee before you go on? Or
I do
like
actually.
A gel or something?
I'm a huge coffee drinker. I love coffee. Like I've had, I think 3 double shots today already. So
he's worse than us.
Yeah. So on fight week, I actually do a week off coffee. It resets my caffeine tolerance and all that sort of stuff. And then, probably about an hour, 2 hours, maybe more before I walk out, I smack a double shot and it hits me like a truck. It's great.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
You get that actual caffeine.
Yeah, I actually
we don't get that anymore.
No, neither do I.
Drink that much.
Neither do I. It does nothing for me. But after fight week, doing a week off, it definitely does. It's great.
See, that would do my head in the most. Like not knowing when I'm on.
Yeah, honestly, it would do my head in 100%. It does my head in watching a fight and not knowing when it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like,
let alone actually fight. Like for me, obviously, when we play, we know exactly what time we come. Like I can plan every hour, and I've always been like that.
Yeah,
you know, I'm eating this time. I'm doing this at this. I'm going for a walk at this time. You guys, you don't know. You're just waiting around. Like for me, that's so annoying.
Yeah, I definitely agree. If I could have a set time where I'm, walking out, and it was definitely going to be that time, I would structure everything to the minute. Yeah. But it's out of my control. So if I can just accept that it's out of my control and just stay relaxed and chilled out until it's time to get ready, then I'm all good.
Exactly, because you don't want to be stressing about that when you got a fight to think about, and so it makes a lot of sense.
It's been trial and error as well. Like in the amateurs as well, there's been times where I've left it too late, and then I've had to abruptly get changed, and haven't even got my shorts on, haven't got my boots on, and I'm fighting in 10 minutes, and I've had to smash it a few rounds on the pads, and then I walk out. And there's been other times where I've got warm hours ahead of time and then cooled down, and that's just as bad. So it's come through a lot of trial and error. And generally, for me, what works is staying relaxed until anywhere between 2 hours to an hour out, and then just staying lightly warm, staying moving, light shadow boxing, stuff like that. That way I'm not overexerting myself, but I'm not going out cold either.
I also wanted to ask, when you're in the ring, are you the sort of guy who will shit talk a little bit? Or are you just full on laser focused? I just want to knock this guy out and that's it? Or are you a little bit cheeky?
Depends on the opponent.
Yeah, it does depend on my opponent.
Because Because obviously we watch it
Yeah.
from afar. We don't know what's going on. Yeah.
It's all very autopilot when you're out there. And I'm sure it's the same when you guys play. It's like a lot of it's very instinctive. There's not a lot of conscious thought going on. You fall back onto your training, especially when someone's trying to like come at you and knock you out. You tend to sort of just fall on instinct a lot. So usually I'm laser focused. I'm not talking, anything like that, but I don't remember the fight. The fight's usually a blur, and then I'll watch it back the next day, and the guy might miss. Like my last fight, for example, the guy missed. I'm shaking my head at him, and I'm saying something. I don't know what I'm saying, but I can see my mouth moving. So I don't remember talking, but I think I do a little bit. And it's less because I'm trying to psych out the guy in front of me. It's more so just to sort of keep myself relaxed. So shot misses. Sometimes I'll go no, shake my head. Sometimes if they land a shot, I'll smile at them and nod my head as if to say, yeah, fair play, good job, which is probably not good either, but it does happen.
And if you're on the receiving end of a bit of trash talk, have you been?
Yeah. Sometimes.
And how do you react? Because I know me, when I play, I try and keep calm, but sometimes, very rarely,
break someone's leg.
very rarely it gets to you.
It used to fire me up a lot, like when I was a kid. Now it's sort of like, I shrug it off. It's like you can talk shit all you want. I'm winning.
I'm about to knock you.
Oh, yeah, I'm about to knock you flat. So like it doesn't bother me. So you want your performance to sort of do the talking more or less.
I reckon that's so true. But when you're younger, you snap at anything.
Oh, bad.
Like I was the same when I was I would literally have the most immature like reactions on pitch, just like from talking and stuff. But then as you get older, you realize, man, this guy, like, what? At the end of the day, the target is to win. Say what you want. At the end of the day, I'm going to win. Like exactly what you said. It's crazy as you mature, the way your mentality changes and you become obviously more educated.
Yeah,
you don't react.
Trial and error as well, because there's been times where I've been fired up and I've let the guy in front of me get in my head, and then it's my performance has suffered. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting angry. I want to take their head off, so I'm making mistakes. I'm lunging. I'm missing. I'm getting hit with counters. Then I'm getting madder, and then like it's just a vicious cycle. Whereas if I can sort of, if they land a shot or if they, start talking a bit of shit, I can sort of shrug it off and go whatever and get back to work. Winning is what's important.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Have you ever had any incidents in the weigh-in, like in the face-off? Do you do the face-offs as well?
Yeah.
You ever had any like shit talking or a guy shot here, smacked him one?
Nah, not really. They're always intense. Like there's always like a full blown stare down, and you and the other guy don't want to break the eye contact first and all that sort of stuff. So. The promoter will usually say, all right, guys, face the front, and you got to face the front and do the shape up in the photos and stuff, and you never want to be the guy that looks away first and all that sort of stuff. But nah, there's never really been back and forth shit talking or anything like that. I wouldn't mind it if there was. It keeps things interesting. But
it's good for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't really think I'm going to be that guy that's going to initiate it.
Exactly.
I mean? Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
What's next for Tommy the Gun?
Obviously the fight.
Yeah, obviously the fight. So I'm not looking past the fight. That's got my undivided attention right now. I'm fighting for a state title, which I'm very excited about. So it's it'll be my biggest test to date. It's an 8-round fight. Hopefully it finishes before that, but it's scheduled for 8 rounds. Usually, like all of my pro fights up to this point have been 4-rounders. So it's the next fight's got my undivided attention. Hopefully get my hands on that silverware, first belt in the pros. So I'm very excited about that.
Is it sold out?
Not quite. It will be, but not quite yet. So yeah, if anyone listening out there in podcast land wants to come along, Pretender to Contender, December 9th, Melbourne Pavilion, come along. Should be good.
For sure.
But yeah, I guess beyond that, hopefully it's a stepping stone to bigger and better things. So
what's the ultimate goal?
I'll take it as far as I can get it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, if that means being a world champion, which is obviously very, very ambitious and a big what if, I'd jump at the opportunity. I'd grab it with 2 hands. And I'm definitely not there now, and I've got a lot of work to do to get to that level. But I'm confident that it's possible because I plan on continuing to turn up day in, day out, and put in 100%. So
I'm sure you'll get there, man.
Yeah.
We see your dedication, your passion
I
for it.
appreciate
I wish
it,
you all
yeah.
the best as well.
thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
No
Loads.
worries.
Yeah, big thank you and all the best for the next one. Hopefully 5-0. I'm sure it will be. Can't wait
Fingers
to watch the
crossed.
fight actually.
Hopefully.
So December 9 at the Melbourne Pavilion, state title. Tommy's got it in the bag.
That's it. That's it.
Big thank you for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on,
Awesome,
boys. I
awesome
appreciate
chat.
it
Thank you
loads.
very much.
Appreciate it. You guys know what to do if you haven't already. Give us a follow. The Almost Made It podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Cultural Club, Instagram.
Give Tommy a follow.
Give Tommy a follow.
Comment some support on his
Yeah,
on
we'll
his
tag
posts. That's it.
Is that everything?
That's everything.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next episode.